Okay, so if you can, just close your eyes for a second and picture this landscape of extremes.
Hmm.
You're standing under this just relentless desert sun. There's nothing but sand in every direction, all shades of red and brown.
It's a place that seems, actively hostile to life.
Right, you'd think nothing could possibly survive out there, let alone build a civilization.
And that's the great contrast, isn't it? You have that desert, what the ancient Egyptians called Shret the Red Land. It's this powerful, chaotic boundary. But then, slicing right through it, you have a river.
The Nile.
Not just a river, but this ribbon of green, this life source, so reliable that it forged a civilization that lasted for, what, 3,000 years? It's almost impossible.
And that civilization is ancient Egypt. Today, we're starting our deep dive into how it all began. And this isn't just a story about pharaohs and tombs. It's about geography, belief, and massive, massive logistics.
The scale is the first thing you have to wrap your head around. It's essential. When we say ancient Egypt, we're talking about a continuous civilization that lasted for over 3 millennia.
It's a number so big, it's hard to process.
I mean, think of it this way. The time from the unification of Egypt to its final fall is more than double the time that separates us, right now, from the birth of Christ.
That's the one that always gets me. When Cleopatra was alive, the pyramids were already more ancient to her than she is to us.
Exactly. And in that time, they created this incredibly sophisticated writing system, hieroglyphics, advanced medicine, a powerful religion.
And of course, the big one, the thing everyone pictures.
The Pyramids of Giza. You can't talk about Egypt without them. The Great Pyramid was the tallest man-made structure on Earth for almost 4,000 years.
4,000 years. Nothing else came close.
Not until the Eiffel Tower in 1889. It's just an astonishing achievement.
And here's the paradox, the hook that really starts our mission today. These incredible structures, these absolute masterpieces of engineering, they were built at the very beginning of Egyptian civilization, not at its peak.
Right. The civilization sort of bursts onto the scene and almost immediately executes its single greatest architectural feat.
It's like a marathon runner starting the race with a full-out sprint, setting a world record in the first mile, and then just jogging consistently for the next 25.
That's a perfect analogy. They established this extreme model of central power and organization right out of the gate.
So to understand how this happened, we have to go back before Egypt as we know it even existed. We need to start with the farming villages and the river that made it all possible.
Let's start with the gift of the Nile itself.
The Greek historian Herodotus, he famously called Egypt the gift of the Nile. And that's not poetry, is it? It's just a plain statement of fact.
It's the ultimate example of geography as destiny. And what made it so special wasn't just that there was water in the desert, it was the clockwork predictability of it all.
So it wasn't just a river, it was a reliable river. How did it compare to, say, the rivers in Mesopotamia?
Oh, it was completely different. The Tigris and Euphrates, their floods were often violent, unpredictable, destructive. It created a constant sense of instability.
Right.
The Nile was the opposite. Every single summer, like clockwork, monsoon rains deep in the Ethiopian highlands would swell the river.
And those floodwaters would then travel north.
Exactly. And by late summer, the river would slowly, gently overflow its banks. And this is the crucial part. It didn't just water the land. It deposited this layer of rich, black, incredibly fertile silt.
So it was self-fertilizing.
Every single year. A natural, perfect renewal of the entire agricultural base. This gave them a massive, predictable food surplus. And that surplus is what eventually feeds the tens of thousands of workers who built the pyramids.
And this contrast between the fertile strip and the deadly desert, that became core to their entire worldview.
It was everything. They called their country Kemet. It literally means the black land for that dark, rich soil.
The land of life.
The land of life and order. And it was surrounded by Dishret, the red land, the desert. That was the land of chaos, danger, and death.
Kemet and Dishret. Order and chaos. It's all right there in the geography.
And that geography gave them another huge advantage. Protection. You had impassable desert to the east and west, the Mediterranean to the north. And to the south, you had these things called cataracts.
Rocky rapids, basically.
Exactly. Made the river impossible to navigate for any large invading army. They were living in a geographic fortress.
So unlike Mesopotamia, which was constantly being invaded,
Egypt was left alone. It had centuries of peace to develop, to centralize, to accumulate wealth and power without constant outside interference. That stability was key.
So when do we start to see actual settlements taking advantage of this perfect setup?
We see small farming communities going back to at least 5,000 BC.
Yeah.
Just little villages growing wheat and barley, raising animals. But for thousands of years, they were pretty much independent.
What changed? What starts the ball rolling toward a unified state?
Well, as the population grew, managing everything got more complex. In around 3500 BC, these villages started to coalesce into two distinct kingdoms, a duality that would define Egypt forever.
Upper and Lower Egypt.
Yes, and we should probably clarify this because it's always confusing for people.
It's totally counterintuitive. Lower Egypt is in the north?
Right. Lower Egypt is the big fan-shaped Nile Delta in the north. Upper Egypt is the long, narrow river valley to the south.
And it's named that way because the Nile flows north, so upper is upstream, lower is downstream.
Precisely. And these two lands had their own identities. Lower Egypt, the north, was the red crown and the cobra goddess Wadjet.
And Upper Egypt.
Upper Egypt, in the south, was the tall, conical white crown and the vulture goddess, Nekhbet. And even after they were unified, the king would always be the ruler of the two lands. That idea never went away.
So the stage is set. We have two powerful kingdoms poised for a clash.
And that clash, around 3100 BC, is what gives birth to dynastic Egypt.
Right, this is the pivotal moment. A king from the south, from Upper Egypt, conquers the north.
This is the figure we know as Narmer, or sometimes Medes in other sources. But the key thing is, this was a conquest. It created the world's first large territorial state, a unified kingdom under a single, absolute ruler.
And we have this incredible piece of evidence for it, probably one of the most important artifacts ever found in Egypt.
The Narmer palette.
Walk us through it. What does it show?
It's basically a piece of propaganda carved in stone. On one side, you see Narmer, and he's huge, towering over everyone else. He's wearing the white crown of Upper Egypt.
The conqueror from the south.
And he's about to smash the head of a kneeling enemy, probably the king of the north. It's a very clear statement of military victory.
And on the other side?
On the other side, you see him walking in a victory procession, but now he's wearing the red crown of Lower Egypt.
So he's not just the conqueror anymore. He's the ruler of the land he just conquered.
Exactly. He has absorbed his enemy's power. It's a political masterpiece. This palette is basically year zero for the pharaohs. Narmer founds the first dynasty.
And what's the first thing you do when you've just created a massive new country?
You need a capital. And they chose a place called Memphis, strategically located right at the junction point, the very spot where the two lands met.
The balance of the two lands.
Exactly. From there, you need a way to run the place. And that means bureaucracy, lots of it. And to have bureaucracy, you need a way to keep records.
Which brings us to hieroglyphics.
The development of a sophisticated writing system. And people think of them as just simple picture writing, but they are so much more complex.
It's not just a picture of a bird means bird.
Not at all. It's a hybrid system. Some signs are phonetic, so a picture represents a sound, like our letters. Some are ideograms, where the picture does mean the thing it shows. But then you have a third type, determinatives.
What do those do?
A determinative is a silent sign at the end of a word that tells you what category the word belongs to. So you might have the same phonetic spelling for, say, write and papyrus, but a little picture of a scribe at the end tells you it means write. It clarifies everything.
That sounds incredibly difficult to learn.
It took years of training. And what that meant was that scribes became an incredibly powerful elite class. They were the gatekeepers of information. The state couldn't function without them. They managed the taxes, the food stores, the army logistics.
They were the ones who made the monumental building projects even possible.
Absolutely. That bureaucratic engine is what allows the Old Kingdom, the Pyramid Age, to begin around 2686 BC.
And this is where the story goes from impressive to, frankly, unbelievable. We're talking about the leap from simple tombs to pyramids.
The speed of that leap is what's so stunning. Before this, royal tombs were basically underground chambers with a mud brick building on top, a flat rectangular thing called a mastaba.
So mud brick, and then suddenly
stone. Monumental stone architecture. And that leap is credited to one man, an absolute genius named Imhotep.
He wasn't a pharaoh, right?
No, he was the vizier, the chief minister for King Djoser. And he's one of the only non-royals in all of Egyptian history who was later deified, worshipped as a god of medicine and architecture.
Wow. So what was his big idea?
He took the basic shape of the mastaba, and he decided to stack them. He built one on top of another, each one a little smaller than the one below, 6 of them in total.
Creating a staircase to the heavens.
The step pyramid. And the first revolutionary thing was that it was made entirely of stone. The first monumental stone building in the history of the world. They had to invent the techniques for quarrying and moving massive blocks pretty much from scratch.
And the second thing,
It wasn't just a tomb, it was a whole complex, a city for the dead king, surrounded by a massive wall. Inside were temples, courtyards, chapels, all designed to magically serve the king in the afterlife.
it's a machine.
It's a resurrection machine. That was the whole point. The king wasn't just a man. He was a god on earth, the embodiment of the god Horus. When he died, he was supposed to become Osiris, the god of the underworld. The pyramid was the mechanism to ensure that transformation happened successfully.
So ensuring the king's eternal life was like the #1 priority for the entire country?
It was a matter of cosmic importance. If the king successfully transitioned, he would guarantee the Nile would flood, the sun would rise, and order, what they called ma'at, would be maintained. So building his tomb wasn't vanity, it was essential public works.
Which brings us to the workers. We have this Hollywood image of thousands of slaves toiling under the whip.
And it's almost entirely wrong. The archaeological evidence is overwhelming. They weren't slaves, they were Egyptian farmers.
How did that work?
You'll think about the Nile flood. For about 3 or 4 months every year, the fields were completely underwater. You couldn't farm.
So you have a massive, idle workforce.
Exactly. The state mobilized them for these projects. They were housed in purpose-built villages. They were well-fed. We found bakeries and breweries that could provision thousands of people. They were paid in rations of bread and beer.
We've even found their own graffiti, right?
Yes, my favorite part. Deep inside the pyramids, you find markings left by the work gangs, and they have names like the Friends of Khufu, or, and this one is the best, the Drunkards of Menkaure.
The drunkards of Menkaure, that does not sound like miserable slave labor.
Not at all. It sounds like a team with a sense of pride and camaraderie. This was a national project, and people seem to have been proud to be a part of it.
And that project reaches its absolute peak about a century later, during the 4th Dynasty, on the Giza Plateau.
This is the apex. The Great Pyramid of Khufu, or Cheops as the Greeks called him. It is the culmination of everything, the bureaucracy, the religious belief, the engineering know-how.
Just give us the numbers again, because they're staggering.
The base covers 13 acres. You could fit 10 football fields inside it. It's made of about 2.3 million stone blocks, each weighing an average of 2.5 tons.
The size of a car.
And some of the granite beams inside, they weigh up to 80 tons. And they had to haul those hundreds of miles from a quarry in the south.
But it's not just the size, it's the precision that is just mind-boggling.
It's almost perfect. The base is level to within less than an inch across that whole 13-acre area. And the sides are aligned to true north with an error of less than 1/10 of a degree.
How is that even possible without modern instruments?
It implies incredibly sophisticated astronomical observation. They were using the stars to create a perfect alignment on Earth. They were mirroring the perfection of the cosmos.
So the big question, how did they build it? What's the leading theory?
The debate really centers on the ramps they used to get the blocks up high. Was it one long, straight ramp that got steeper and steeper? Or was it a ramp that spiraled around the outside of the pyramid as it grew?
There's evidence for both, right?
There is. But whatever the method, it required an unbelievable level of state-organized logistics, manpower, and specialized teams working for decades.
And what about inside? What's in there?
The interior is this masterpiece of engineering. You have passages leading down into the bedrock and then up into the heart of the pyramid. The most famous feature is the Grand Gallery, this incredible soaring corridor that leads to the King's Chamber.
And the King's Chamber itself is made of solid granite.
Solid red granite. And above it, to prevent it from being crushed by the millions of tons of stone, the architects built 5 separate stress-relieving chambers. It was an ingenious solution to an immense engineering problem.
But for all that work, for all that protection,
Yeah.
the chamber was empty when we found it.
It's the great tragedy of the pyramids. They were giant, unmissable signs saying, "Treasure buried here." They were almost all robbed in antiquity, probably within a few hundred years. The granite sarcophagus of Khufu is still there, but his body and his treasures are long gone.
And Giza isn't just one pyramid, it's a whole dynastic complex.
It's a family affair. Khufu's son, Khafre, built the second pyramid. Looks a bit taller because it's on higher ground, and he's also credited with carving the Great Sphinx,
The lion with a human head guarding the entire plateau.
a symbol of royal power and intelligence. And then Menkaure, Khafre's son, built the third and smallest one. By then, you can start to see that maybe the resources were starting to get a little strained.
So to really understand why they'd pour the entire wealth of a nation into this, we have to understand their beliefs about what happens after you die.
That's the whole key. It wasn't about death. It was about ensuring eternal life. And to do that, you had to understand the different parts of the soul.
It wasn't just one single entity.
No, it was complex. First, you had the Ka. You can think of it as your life force, your spiritual double. After you died, your Ka needed a physical place to live.
Which is why mummification was so important. It preserved the body for the Ka.
Exactly. And as a backup, they'd place a statue of the deceased in a hidden chamber. If the mummy was destroyed, the Ka could live in the statue.
An insurance policy for the soul.
Pretty much. Then you had the Ba. The Ba was your personality, your unique character. It was depicted as a bird with a human head.
And the Ba could leave the tomb.
Yes. During the day, the Ba could fly out, revisit the world, enjoy the offerings left by family. But, and this is critical, it had to return to the body, to the Ka, every single night to be reunited and recharged. The tomb was the home base.
So the tomb had to be a perfect, eternal home stocked with everything you'd need.
Everything. Food, furniture, tools, even little servant figurines called shabtis that would magically come to life and do your work for you in the afterlife.
But getting to that afterlife wasn't automatic. There was a test.
A final judgment. The most important moment. After death, you'd be led to the Hall of Two Truths to face Osiris.
And this is the famous weighing of the heart.
Your heart, which they believed was the seat of your conscience and intelligence, was weighed on a scale against a single feather.
The feather of Ma'at.
Feather of truth, justice, and cosmic order. If your heart was heavy with sin, heavier than the feather,
You were in trouble.
big trouble. Your heart was thrown to a terrifying demon named Amit, part crocodile, part lion, part hippo, who devoured it. And your soul ceased to exist. Annihilation. The ultimate end.
But if your heart was as light as the feather,
You were declared true of voice and granted entry into the field of reeds, which was basically Egyptian heaven, a perfect, idealized version of the Nile Valley where you'd live in paradise for all eternity.
it's an incredible system of belief supported by this huge pantheon of gods.
Absolutely. You have Ra, the sun god and creator, Osiris, god of the dead, his wife Isis, the goddess of magic, their son Horus, the god of kingship embodied by the living pharaoh, and his rival, Set, the god of chaos and storms. It was a constant battle between order and chaos.
And for a few centuries, it seemed like order was winning. The Old Kingdom looked like the most stable system on Earth, but then it all fell apart.
It did. The system just couldn't sustain itself. By the 5th and 6th dynasties, the pyramids are getting smaller, the resources are clearly being stretched thin.
And there were internal problems, too.
A big one. The pharaohs had rewarded their high officials, these provincial governors called nomarchs, with a lot of land and power.
So they could run the country more efficiently.
At first, but over generations, these positions became hereditary. The nomarchs started acting like little kings in their own provinces. They had their own armies, their own tax revenue. Power was slowly leaking away from the central government in Memphis.
So the state was fracturing from within, but that wasn't the final blow, was it?
No. The final blow was climate change. Around 2200 BC, a massive, prolonged drought hit the entire region.
And for Egypt, that meant one thing.
A catastrophe. The reliable, predictable annual Nile flood failed. Not just once, but repeatedly. The agricultural base of the entire civilization collapsed.
And if the river fails, the whole ideology of the divine king maintaining cosmic order, it just shatters.
Completely. The state couldn't feed the people. Famine was widespread. We have texts from the period that describe absolute horror, society turned upside down, chaos, bodies in the street.
The triumph of Isfet over Ma'at.
The total breakdown of order. And with the central government powerless, the nomarchs, these local strongmen, started fighting each other for whatever resources were left.
So the unified kingdom just dissolved.
It shattered back into a collection of warring states. And this period of chaos and civil war is what we call the first intermediate period. It would last for about 150 years.
It's an incredible story. Even the most powerful, divinely backed state can be brought down by a shift in the climate.
It's a powerful lesson. But what's also remarkable is that the idea of Egypt, the culture, it survived the collapse, which sets the stage for its eventual rebirth.
So the Old Kingdom, the age of the pyramid builders, ends in famine and civil war. But as we've laid out, it created the template for everything that would follow in Egyptian civilization.
Absolutely. The divine king, the focus on the afterlife, the massive bureaucracy, all those ideas were set in stone, so to speak. They would endure for the next 2,000 years.
The shadow of those early pyramids stretched across the entire rest of Egyptian history. They really did build for eternity, even if they didn't quite achieve it in the way they planned.
Their cultural memory was incredibly resilient.
And that brings us to the end of part one of our deep dive. We've seen villages become a kingdom, and that kingdom reach for the stars only to crumble back into the dust.
So join us next time for part 2. We'll look at how Egypt was put back together again at the start of the Middle Kingdom. We'll explore a more, you could say, democratized afterlife, a foreign invasion by the mysterious Hyksos, and the rise of the glorious new kingdom of Tutankhamun and Ramesses the Great.
Before we go, here's a final thought. We've talked about the immense effort, the entire state treasury, the labor of tens of thousands of people, all focused on building an eternal home for one single person, the king. What does that absolute singular focus tell you about their values compared to ours? What do we as modern societies choose to build when we undertake our own massive multi-generational projects? Where do we decide to place our collective energy?
A fascinating question to ponder. Until next time, keep digging.